Everybody, and welcome. I'm Hayley Mitchell Haugen. I am the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Sheila-Na-Gig Editions, and you have entered our celebration for the end of the year for 2023. We have a 4-hour lineup of some amazing poets from across the nation who have been published in Sheila-Na-Gig Online this year. So welcome, everybody. And our first reader tonight is Dotty LeMieux.
Hi, thank you so much, Hayley, and everybody welcome. It's great to see you all. And I'm really delighted to be in such good company. I'm going to read two that seem to both have mothers in them. One of them is a longer prose poem, and that one was in Sheila-Na-Gig during the pandemic in the last couple of years. I'm not sure what date. The other one has not yet been published. So I'll just start. His mother in the Bellow Gardens. When he visits his mother in the Bellow Gardens, she doesn't know who he is. She doesn't know who she is, for that matter, but he pretends. It's expected. Look, it's your son, chirps the attendant whose name is Sheridan. What have they done with his mother? When he was a boy, she gave him pet names, raspberries in his ears. He loved the wetness of them, the buzzing sound. His laughter could fill the outdoors. She named the birds for him, the trees, the blades of grass. He called her Mommy, then Mom. Later, she always wore whatever present he brought her, sweaters from Filene's upstairs, not the basement, not for his blessed Mommy, Mom. Perfume he knew she didn't really like, but he liked to smell on her. It reminded him of the vastness of the backyard when he was young. Mommy searching for her lost boy, hiding behind a large oak tree with a branch that held his swing, trying not to laugh. She wore his sweaters and perfume, and one year, a funny Easter bonnet, ears and all. The son is surprised every time he visits her now to have a mother he doesn't know. Maybe it's just a random old lady. They all look alike, smell alike. All the sons look alike too, well-fed, red-faced, confused in the atrium, and the attendants named Sheridan or Casper or Malachi in the Bellow Gardens on a sunny day in December. And the next one is called The Pear Tree. The pear tree, thank you. The pear tree needs water to survive. It relies on a human with a hose aimed at its roots. It drinks deeply, greedily, like a baby at a breast. All is peaceful in the backyard. The deer beyond the fence, grazing on whatever has fallen below. Pears, wild plums, acorns, these does with their little ones, keeping vigil, ears perked. In the space between war and not war, stand the mothers, holding hands across barbed wire, patient, silent. You know what they are saying. No sounds interrupting their communication. You know what they mourn in this time of dead children, not their own, and their own too. All dead children. The mothers keen. Don't pretend you can't hear their song. Thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm Cynthia Anderson, and reading to you from Yucca Valley, California. And the first poem I'll read is about my father. It's in the current issue of Sheila-Na-Gig, and it's a mythological look at him. I'm using the story of Karen, the ferryman across the river Styx. And this is called Karen Incarnate. He tried to forsake the water, reborn in an ocean of sand, rocking to sleep in that wasteland, holding his knees, haunted by his past life on Pain River. The heat stalked his small body, nearly claimed him right then. In the black hours, His parents drove to the mountains to save his life. As he grew, a dry match ever drier, he dreamt of the day he'd ignite. That's how Lake Woman found him, stranded on shore, stiff as driftwood. She flicked her raccoon tail until he smoldered and sparked. They honeymooned at Seneca, where she endured his whims. He wouldn't swim or ride the ferry. Her ultimatum came 5 years in, then a girl and boy in quick succession. He drove them to and fro in silence, never asked directions, became lost and more lost. His eyes, hollow furnaces on fire. That last line is from Virgil, by the way, from the Aeneid. That's his description of Charon, the boatman. So, and the second poem I'll read is from my book, Arrival, published by Hayley earlier this year. And this book is special to me because it has some poems that are really personally meaningful. And I'm going to read one of those. 20 years ago, I survived a pretty brutal bout with cancer. And when I was recovering and sitting in my backyard and contemplating a return to poetry after a long absence, I was asking myself, what is it? What is it that I really want to write about? And so this is the first significant poem I wrote, after that time, and it's called Golden Torch. The sun is stingy on the coast in June, but finally, through the fog, enough warmth seeps through, and the golden torch bursts into bloom. From an old clay pot, the spiny columns curve gracefully upward, a sight more at home in the desert than here. Nearly every year brings a bloom or two. This year, 3. Each day, we check the progress. Dark, furry nubs swell to thick stems, then bud into flowers big as plates. Tender petals shimmering between the cream of camellia and crystalline snow. Inside, hundreds of tendrils tipped with pale yellow recede to the core, a deepening lime green whirl, the end of the known universe. Slender stamens claim the last triumph, rising up and out to the sky, calling the sun god to make good on his promises. And he answers. A black bee, delirious, enters the temple, sinks on the soft gold carpet, then staggers away with his hoard of happiness. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Proudfoot, and I'm going to read 2 poems from the past. I think from the past, they were both in this past year's Sheila-Na-Gig online edition. The first one is dedicated to my son, and it's called At Your Age, I Found the Blues. At your age, I found the blues. Does our skin hold memory the way we held hands, looked both ways, then moved together into traffic? Who taught me to stop? I saw the light change. I willed our 4 legs to step together off the curb, cross at the green, not in between. What song do you carry? Now your blonde curls turn brown, your beard streaked in gray, father to a little girl, What do you give that she'll carry? Rain, rain, she sings, go away. At your age, I found the blues, some truth that seized my throat, hung close. Even now, I'm holding my own heart out to the light, to the racing, ongoing world, reckoning in 4/4 time with my own stitched life, how to unbind the grief, how much weight to bear. When you took those first tottering steps, when you reached for my hand at the curb, it was all I could do to hold you back. Off you went, moving forward, faster than ever. And the rain, yes, there will be rain. And the second poem, and it might be from a year ago, but I just love it, so I want to read it. It's called She-Fox. The she-fox lives on this ridge top. One autumn, I glimpse her on the edge of the woods, curled up in a leaf pile beside a fallen elm, an orange ball glowing. One neighbor feeds her supermarket eggs and cut up chicken parts. One neighbor set up an infrared camera, turned his dogs loose at night. Some of us drive more slowly, scan the edge of the hill, glance up while raking, hope she stops long enough to view even a part of her. Slender nose, black legs, russet coat, white tail tip. She barks at us, a soft cough, a warning not to get too close. Poetry feels like that, keeps us close enough to bring a small part back. The rest slips away, one part in focus, one part wild. I like that, want to be there in that place. Once she sat atop a large rock, kits wrestling and tumbling beside her. Once a male fox limped by, rear paw held in a rusty snare, chain trailing behind. Once a fox hater stood in the driveway of a fox feeder, cursing their family, threatening to hire a sharpshooter. And like that, she was gone. Just gone. November, December, wind howled through bare treetops, snow piled in drifts. January, February. In a dream, an unseen animal paces my spine, paws planting on places that need to crack open. Then, against the snowy hillside, a gift I didn't deserve, watching me, watching her. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to see everyone's face. I feel like this is such a gift. So we're quite a bit ahead of schedule. So I'm gonna take a few extra minutes, Hayley, to just thank you for conceiving this idea of bringing us all together during this week when we all are able to take one small breath in between, those of us who celebrate the Christmas time and then the New Year, because we know we're all going to get lambasted here very soon because of the New Year. So thank you so much for all you do for so many. Thank you for publishing so many of our books. Thank you for Sheila-Na-Gig Online. Thank you for being my dear friend and dear friend to so many. There's just not enough good words to say about all that you are doing to lift up so many voices, and particularly taking on the new project, which is going to be in its second, is in the middle of its second coming together, right? The anthology of short fiction. Am I right? Yeah. See, you just said, and this is my short-term memory, I think that's going. But anyway, it's pretty astounding. And this woman works full-time, 5 classes each semester, many times. And these are she's got to read essays. She's got to read poems. She can't just make a check mark. She has got to read this work and comment on it. And she has a lot of students in every class. So it's pretty darned amazing to see what she accomplishes. So A huge hand for Hayley and so much love going out. Okay, so I picked a poem tonight that was published in Sheila quite some time ago, but I was thinking about the Christmas spirit, the holiday spirit, the Hanukkah spirit, all of the spirits that come together at this time of year. Kwanzaa, I'm sure I'm missing several others, and I do apologize for that. But I wrote this poem for a woman here in Athens County because my Women of Appalachia project gave her the Appalachian Advocate Award because she is a woman who helped found our, I call it the food reuse program. And she would get in her little red cherry red hatchback and drive around and pick up leftover food from restaurants and redistribute it to those in need. And I was so moved by that, and I wanted to write her a poem, and this is the poem that came from that. And Hayley published it, and it's also in my book, Alone in the House of My Heart. And I'm showing off here because I have 2 stickers. I got a finalist and I got a first place award. So I'm very excited about that. So this is Leftovers. We do well. We feel safe. We will not live life off target. Let us bow our heads, thankful for the fine-grained crust, the yielding inner crumb. The wine oaky, sweetened with song, trilled on angel food tongues, we grow plump as low-hanging fruit. Out on the street, fallen while no one was looking, the nameless siphon sustenance from their bones, punched, rootless, left a sizzle in the skillet, so many futures fricasseed. Out on the street, children spin despair's fouled honey. Our Alamode speeches, our but for the grace quotes, cannot atone for the bounty uneaten, tossed into dumpsters at end of day, our legislators pickling the batter. Out on the street, a fairy godmother, hell-bent for butter. Unlike the fables, cold porridge, toxic apples, parents left with a sickly succotash of choice. She salvages second-day cuisine via cherry red hatchback, hustles to rewrite stories, one underpass, one home delivery, one meal-sized biodegradable container at a time. So think about it, folks. You can get involved in programs like that. If you are in a facility that has a lot of food waste, think about finding a home for some of that food. I think about all the food we've eaten over these holidays. Oh my goodness, and so many doing without. And another great place is the veterans' homes as well. Folks that are there have a pretty limited life. So anyway, if you get a hankering, think about donating to such places because they do such good work, and most of the people who work there volunteer, so they're unpaid. And one other poem tonight, and this is from my new book, Dirt Songs, which is officially coming out on February 6th. I'm very excited about this one too. It's got a lot of ornery poems in it. This is me writing about my rural upbringing. And I've never done it this deeply before. I've written a lot about my people. And this is a lot of writing about my hometown starting out, what it was like to grow up in Amesville, Ohio, in a very small village that was so rural. My parents owned the farm. My grandparents owned the farm just outside the village, and they were considered rich, and they were farmers. So it gives you an idea of what it's like to grow up in a small, small town. And so I think I'm going to read that poem to you. It's titled Amesville Girls. Amesville girls sip squirt soda from lime green returnable glass bottles pulled ice cold from the chest cooler at Kassler's Corner Grocery. Retrieve the dime, stuff it in the jukebox at Fanny's Family Diner. Dance the bus stop or the sprinkler to AC/DC. Say words like wash and fixin' to go. Spit watermelon seeds, good as the boys. Swim naked in the creek. Sneak out to sleep in the graveyard to be closer to their grannies. Ink a ballpoint tattoos on each other's biceps. Wear fruity red lip gloss to softball practice. Dream Guns and Roses tour bus stops for lunch at the diner. And Slash or Duff McKagan kiss their cherry white mouths, finger their buttons, white knight them away. That's really how it was. We would really dream that some big rock star, somebody would come to our town and save us. And so we really did think that. We would write stories about that all the time. And we really couldn't wait to get out. And now so many of us are fighting to stay here and fighting against stereotype and the bootstrap myth and so many other things that are stereotypical about Appalachia. So thanks so much, everyone, for listening to my poems tonight. I'm so excited to hear everybody.
Let's take that from the top. I was muted. I'm Judy Kronenfeld, reading tonight from Riverside, California. I'm delighted to see all of you. It's really wonderful to see your faces. And I have to echo Kari, because I simply cannot fathom, having taught for many years with a schedule that wasn't anywhere near as difficult as Hayley's, how you do it. It's just unfathomable. So thank you for bringing us together, and thank you for everything that you do. I'm going to read, before I begin, I just say I'm very excited about having a fairly long-ish chapbook coming out from Sheila-Na-Gig early in the year, probably February, March. It's called, now I'm blocking on the names to tell you, If Only There Were Stations of the Air. And that will actually be, I'm amazed to say, my 8th collection. So I'm really thrilled. Okay, I'm going to read 2 short poems, one shorter than the other. The first one was very recently published in One, that lovely magazine from Jack R. Press. And the second one will be from the last issue of Sheila-Na-Gig. I tend to write into life difficulties, so this poem is related to that. Reaction to diagnosis of sorrow to come. Our little house is floating out to sea, taking on water. The books we never culled, pulping out and falling off the tilting shelves. Our saved letters spilling from their box, ink blurring and lifting off. The lounge and sofa, the ottomans and end tables all slide downwards as our home half crests the oncoming wave. The two of us bobbing close to the ceiling like an ancient doomed Chagall bride and groom. If only there were life preservers on ropes to be thrown. If only there could be a chopper dropping a ladder from the sky we could both safely climb. If only there were a harbor we could settle in with a view that never changed. And the second poem was in the last issue of Sheila. And it's in two parts. And the title is Afternoon, Evening, Night. 1. On the closed blinds covering my study's west-facing windows, as if they were a translucent rice paper screen, shadows of a few outside leaves lift and sway, stirring in a soundless wind. Now they become agitated, now becalmed, then they are flustered again. A flare of light brightens the edge of a cushion. Like a guttering candle, a flush of light flickers on my dulling page. Soon, as if the trees outside have walked closer, quiet leaf shadow almost fills the double windows. In a little while, the warm flutters in the room are quenched, and then the closed blinds turn flat gray. The shadow play is over. 2. First there was darkness over the face of ocean, and then the splendor. But light did not expunge the dark. It comes now, slowly down. It hushes the streets outside the shuttered windows of my town. It settles like a quilted throw a daughter places over the old woman fallen asleep in her chair. Its kind wing mantles towns and fields, towns and fields, towns and fields, until it dims your town and your street, and then the mountains and the sea. Thanks.
Thanks, Judy. That was beautiful. The first poem is a Sheila poem called Questions of Memory. There was a tire swing in the mulberry tree and a few boards you nailed against the lowest branches, a pulley with a basket for their lunches. Morning glories were blue, deep, deep, deep. A side porch with a door we never used, afraid we'd break the stained glass panel. But the stoop was good for a cigarette. You showed me where the stink pipe hid in the bamboo. The kids hid there too, the perfect place for losing gloves or finding them, when the snow was gone in spring. I planted irises along the sidewalk. Their stalks stood brown long after they bloomed. Solomon seal, buttercup, Mexican hat, calendula that bloomed in December once. There had been a fire. We never knew. The charred remains of rafters not burned through, so it didn't matter. I wondered how that could possibly be true. I wondered if we could make a pantry under the stairs. I wondered whether the bats we found beneath the wainscot were as safe there as they seemed. Would you just let them go? I helped you level floors and lay tile. I helped you salvage porcelain knobs, or were they marble? Purple hyacinth, verbena's tiny little blooms, rhododendron big enough for the kids to climb. They rode bikes around the block, built snow forts just outside the door. And when we got a lot of snow, they drug their plastic sleds to the cemetery, the steepest hill in town. The radio played that Cars song you loved over and over. Your slight overbite and your complete inability to carry a tune. The way you ducked when you entered a room. The porch door that squeaked and slammed on a worn spring. The blocks of opaque glass you found for the bathroom wall. I didn't know you at all. And second one is actually pretty new, so I'm going to try it out here. It's called Wolverines. And just FYI, Wolverine is a brand of work boot. Wolverines. My therapist says I should keep journaling about the suicide. I try, I admit, but can't. It's been years and I'm dried up. Since the suicide, I'm sure I've moved on. She asks what I want from my recovery, why I think I'm over it. I want to be done with it, I tell her. Though sometimes I remember my ex's work boots, how they stood in the doorway without his feet in them, steel-toed and pocked with burns. I want to write about the Wolverines, the ones that held up best, that kept his feet from the blue flame of the acetylene torch as he welded continuous rail from Louisa to Pikeville, Kentucky. It was no pretty place to work or live. We honeymooned there so he wouldn't lose a week's pay. I sat on the green chenille in the motel room reading A Christmas Carol for the third time while he welded the track, or I walked to the front desk for a stale payday and a can of Diet Squirt. I remember the old woman. I was just 26, in her faded house dress. How genuine she seemed, how nice. I know enough should be all right. Each step toward more, a petal in the wind. I tried to cultivate a field of erasures where everything means something else. A boot, for example, becomes feral, an animal, solitary, deadly when cornered by a thing so many times larger than itself. Goose-fleshed, prickling, growling. And if I couldn't manage all that posturing, maybe I'd walk, leave the world idling, lie down in the weeds, untie those heavy boots and weasel out of them. Let the world, this once, do some forgiving.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
So I think I'm up next. Judy, why don't you turn your mic off because you're on the
Sorry,
screen
so sorry.
rather than me. My name is Gary Grossman, and I live in Athens, Georgia. I tend to not give long introductions or anything and just get right to the poems. I will say that I have a new book out, and there will be a Sheila reading on the 11th of January, in which I'll read poems from the book. So thank you, Hayley, and everyone else involved in that. And the first poem that I'm going to read was published in March in Sheila, and it's entitled The Hours of Prayer. I guess one other thing that I will say is that I try to find kind of the beauty and majesty of in everyday actions in everyday life. So the hours of prayer. Louds. A nightmare wakes me. Repeated theme. I can't get to Barajas, the Madrid airport. I will miss my plane. But the subtext is, go to the damn bathroom. So I throw back the percale sheet, roll to the right, and plant my slightly wobbly 4:32 a.m. feet on our red oak floor. Take a right at the hall and enter the yellow bathroom. 8 seconds later, I'm lifting the wooden toilet seat and peeing. Prime. Awake for an hour. Sleep escaped for the night. Again, I roll to my right, stand up, grab shorts, t-shirt, flip-flops, my current novel, historical fiction about the Marranos, the crypto-Jews of 15th century Spain, walk to the living room and turn on both the floor and table lamps. It is early September and sunrise is 2 hours distant. Tierce. I sit on the couch while the sun shovels a seemingly inexhaustible supply of light into our living room. 30 pages read, email checked, happy birthday greetings sent to 12 Facebook friends, even checked my Insta. My coffee cup snuggles the lamp on our mahogany side table, empty after 3 fillings. Sext. Nothing for lunch, not penance, but easier to lose the extra 10 pounds this way. hunger chased away by a 4-mile jog. Midday is hot, already in the 90s. Sweat rolls down me like a missed fastball on a steep street. None. It's nap time, but as usual, I scare it off. 2 cups of strong coffee in the neighborhood coffee house. Temptation everywhere. Scones, cheese Danish, fruit tarts, but the writing goes well. Vespers. Supper has come and gone. Shrimp salad, steamed asparagus, baguette from the bakery, and Comte cheese to finish. The bones of 3 poems rest on the computer desktop, skin and muscles to be added on the morrow, I guess. Air sweet with satisfaction. Night watch, a nightmare wakes me. And perhaps I should have explained beforehand, but this is the cycle of prayers that monks and nuns say in monasteries, just updated for my life. The second poem I'm going to read is a brand new poem, and it's entitled Folding the Sheets. My wife out of town, I manage most tasks. Wipe the sink clean after dinner and check basement lights before injecting myself under the cool top sheet in late June. But in decades of striding upon this soil-iced world cake called Terra, I'm outwitted every 7 days by my queen-size fitted sheet. Match the corners, match the seams, match the edges. I fail the exam, which leads me to the solution for all tedious tasks. Function must overrule style or vogue. So I begin whirling this sheet round and round my forearms, a 500-thread tornado of linen, now relaxing with its cylindrical sky blue cotton friends in the bathroom closet. Thank you.
Hello, folks. I'm Shei Sanchez. It's lovely to see familiar faces. Hello, I miss you all. I feel like I've been gone for so long. Thanks, Hayley, for putting this together. This is exciting. Yay. I will read 2 poems, and I'm here in a blurred background. Hopefully, no dog or cat will come by. And the first one I'll read was published this past spring, I believe. And it's called The Before and After. It's after a painting called River of Light by Vicky McCafferty. This moment's full and wanting. Rhapsody at last delight, dancing in pink fandango on knife's edge. Thick honey, caramel, cornflower on silken water. Bottled memory unbidden on a brush. What? Sorry. An hourglass toppled beside desire. Why do we want to arrest time? Pour the short end of light in a measuring cup and watch wet sand spill on a canvas. Drip honey on the mouth of a harbor and wait. Just wait. How do we catch the sound of a river bending? I want to catch a shine of light before it names everything. The hucking, the scioto, the maumee, the chagrin. I want to sail the crest of youth before water names its thirst. The Alabang, the Hudson, the Charles, the Chao Phraya. Eat this, the woman from Isan said in Thai, and handed me sour soup with young pork bones. I smell lemongrass, galangal, magrut, and taste the color of longing. I see the radiance of Wat Arun against a rose-tinted dawn and sense the moment fading. My fumbles and regrets savored with gratitude. I want to wade in the before and after. I want to wake a stream from a sky of currant, coral, dandelion. I want. Okay. Thank you. And this next one is, I guess you could say, fairly new. I wrote it over the summer, but I've been kind of holding myself in my house. So I haven't been out that much. Okay. This one is called Hard Fact. A hard plastic cart is wheeled to the back seat. The vet and her student lay your sick body on top, and I watch the beginning of an end unfold. The irregularity of stiff neck lying against stiff spine, like a sapling stretched supine by wind. I watch the grip of transience mirrored in your onyx black eyes, searching for ways to say, "Don't leave me. Leave me. Don't leave." All that we could have done courses inside you. Thiamine, penicillin, muscle relaxer, sugar water. One injection after another. A regimen learned like verses from a toughened heart. While we wait for a reason in the car, redolent of hay dust and futility, I step out and look up at the evening's ocean blue hue. There, waiting on its surface, the waxing crescent moon, watchful and unafraid. I imagine you bathing under fluorescent light, trying to live. My mud brown eyes widen to inhale this moment. Let the deepest color of fear pour slowly on the parking lot, where the twilight had descended and the faint sounds of Columbus stilled itself. Like a gift, a lone firefly made himself known to us. Is this the end of a beginning? I smell lemon and black walnut leaves. You loved to eat them. Your mother browses in the meadow. I rub the side of her belly where she carried you. Summer's halfway through, and this sky cannot carry us all. Days later, a hard plastic box and a handwritten grief card come in the mail. We stare at your hoofprint, at the flecks of shit and mud from your home, standing out against an empty white. Thanks very much.
Hi, well, I'll add my thanks to Hayley for organizing this beautiful event. I'm enjoying every minute of it, so I'm adding my contribution. I read two poems, and the first one is from Sheila-Na-Gig online, and it's about what I call a place of the heart, is Little Cayman Island. My husband and I used to go there to dive. I feed on memories of diving the wall on Little Cayman Island, like a hawksbill turtle biting off a sponge. With a long exhale, I descended into cobalt blue, slow danced down the side of a sheer coral wall, the echoing sound of breathing in my ears. Water all around me, happy medium, liquid breeze. A pair of French angelfish, flat back bodies brightened by yellow-rimmed scales, darted in unison. A reef shark shot downward and disappeared. Buoyant, I swam along the wall, looked for creatures into crevices, drew back, held by the womb-like deep. An arrow crab perched on coral on its spindly legs. A frilly leaf crawled, revealing itself a lettuce sea slug. My body belonged to the moment as I converged on a sea anemone and searched for its tenant, Pedersen cleaning shrimp, hiding among the stinging tentacles. The dive computer guided my slow ascent. The safety stop granted a few more minutes to embrace schools of fish, coral heads, gorgonians swaying in the current. I pulled away and inched back to the surface. Glare in my eyes, staggered up the boat's ladder. With heavy gear I would shed and slip on weights awaiting, pounds of worries and anxiety. I fought the urge to let go of the handrail, back into the water, into the blue. And this was published in Sheila-Na-Gig. And the next one is, since we're coming on the new year, it's kind of good for the season. This was published in Italian Americana, and it's called The First Bicycle Ride of the New Year. I rode in the lull between cold fronts. From the Arcata Marsh, marked an arc around the North Bay to the road's end. The Pacific rumbled out of sight. Green patched sand dunes between us, flowerless in this season of washed out colors and storms lashing from the west. A breeze blew sand onto the road, stretching straight to the spit's end, marked by a jetty, where the ocean rose in mesmeric waves. On a day like this, a breaker swept a woman over the wall, the undertowed carried her away. On a day like this last November, a stroke struck my poet friend and his lines came to an end. In the year just born, pedaling was all I allowed to matter. Rain-washed air, pale sky, black asphalt. The dunes will bloom, sand verbenas, pink and yellow clusters, trumpet-shaped beach morning glory, Hierro will paint bright strokes on the gray gold sand. Thank you.
Hi, this is Penelope Moffet in Los Angeles. I'll read two very short poems. The first one was published in Sheila-Na-Gig, I think in the spring issue this year. But it was written 2 Decembers ago at the time of the full moon. So the 2nd December of the pandemic. And now we've had another full moon just last night in this much better December. But here's the poem from 2 years ago. Full moon, December. Before dawn, a full moon hangs between the condos across the street. Instagram worthy, but I don't try it with my old iPhone. The cats wait for me to provide a lap in the recliner, my legs up in the reading lamp's soft pool of light. The sky lightens, trees appear, the moon goes into hiding. What I can see from here are red tile roofs, a gray sky tinged with blood. It's so long since I held someone human. Thank you. And the second poem, which is much more recent, is from this September, and it's just been published in Halfway Down the Stairs. And it is called Minstrel. The orb weaver has rolled up her sleeping bag and gone. Last night at sunset, she sagged under holes in the web above the citronella, marigolds and herbs. Most mornings she wove a new home, but today she's on another porch. Or maybe she was done with life, egg sac hidden in the eaves or underneath a leaf. The air seems empty. I miss the way she strummed the shiny silver threads of her guitar. Thank you for listening.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nancy Sobanik, and I am hailing you from Lyman, Maine, which is southern Maine. I'm thrilled to be here tonight, and I thank Hayley for the opportunity to read. The first poem I'm going to read was published in July in Sheila, and it's titled Flying Kites at the Cape. We let the string spool out, spin and sprint to do our part. Watch teasing fingers sweep the kite aloft. Shriek for a glorious moment before the kite dives sharply to bite the sand, proving that hands cannot control the wind. I hold the snapshot culled from a dusty shoebox dragged from under the bed. My father is laughing, his shoulders and hands hang loose at his sides. Behind him, the dunes of the Cape rise, domes to the vault of blue above. It was a rare moment before the angry beetled eyes of evening, before words that swarmed like wasps, the soured breath of a six-pack. So quickly we grow, our halcyon days peered at through faded photos, with hands that can hold time. Like Schrodinger's cat, we are both child and old, happy or angry, and the kite is remembered as kissing the blue or crashed. It all depends which lid we choose to take off the box. Thank you. The next poem excuse me. The next poem is titled Falling Birds. It must have been 1968. Silent skyfall, flutter of pin feathers, and a spotted robin lay stunned next to green swords and yawning purple mouths of the irises. Childhood memories, some tatted like fine lace that moths have visited, others more vivid. Eclipse glasses we fashioned from cutout cereal boxes, a penumbra pasted onto a darkling sun. Evenings gathered us, acolytes around the television, much as our grandparents tipped ears towards the radio and our children bow heads to their cell phones. Cronkite spoke strange names, Mekong Delta, Tet Offensive. Still photos don't breathe. A Marine sleeps forever slack-jawed, lit cigarette dangling from the cracked bell of his lips. The dead, pollocked red, stem snapped, laid in a neat line on the street, like unnested Matryoshka dolls, standing in a row on my bedroom sill. Cupped in my hands, the small ball of fluff, my father yelling, "Leave it, come in now," but I did not listen. Kept vigil next to the shoebox, quivering chest rise, half-closed eyes, placed inchworms next to a cap of water. Before there was the evening news, Grimm's tales at bedtime, Mama telling me that monsters aren't real, flashlight sweeping under the bed, switching on the smiling moon nightlight. Then there was after, one small bird twitching, a small dug hole, the spanking. One small girl who learned to watch where she stepped and also to look up for falling birds. Thank you.
Well, not only thank you, Hayley, which really thank you, Hayley, for all you do for all of us and so many people. But thank you for everybody else for being here tonight. What a wonderful community this is to be able to show up between some big holidays and have other poets who enjoy language be here and spend time together. The first poem I'll read was published by Sheila-Na-Gig online, and it is the title poem from my latest collection of poems called Spirit of Wild. And this came out in the summer of 2021, not my book, but the poem that as Hayley printed it. So, Spirit of Wild. To sing in the dark, to sing in the dark is to know there is light. Like a fox shrugging the flame in its fur, the rush of the creek after a summer storm. The whisper of wings as an owl haunts by, a nest of bones where daffodils peak. Sap surging upwards to green and then leaf, branches that creak through the wind's endless sigh, though shadows may shift and reshape their forms, let the wedge of the moon act as a lure, cast off the rooms where we've boxed ourselves tight. Step into the den of the forest's deep heart. And thank you. And this one is called Footprints in Ash, was also published by Hayley and Sheila-Na-Gig online this past summer. Footprints in Ash. Even now the land is rewilding. After the fires, wastelands where towns and forests once bloomed, clouds bloated with dust cough across a heated sky. Scorpions skitter into crevices to winnow the ashes, the grains of what remains. Trees, doors, people, broken. Hammers without handles, pens without ink, bone without marrow, all useless, harbingers of what is to come. But what of life past? Beauty from memory, serenity from routine. Poisoned with politics, we grope in darkness and in light, hesitating at the edge. Our gusto transformed to granite, blood emulsified to sludge. We become statues, ravaged later or sooner. The rewilding has begun. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Reynolds. I'm from Phillipsburg, New Jersey, which no one's heard of, which is right across the Delaware River from Easton, Pennsylvania, which is not far from Bethlehem and not far from Allentown, if you know that area. I'm going to read from a manuscript which was just awarded the 42 Miles Press Book Award. So in 2025, it will be a book. So I have a while to work on it and wait. But I will read two poems that were not in Sheila-Na-Gig. And they were written at very different times. But one is about this time of year. It's really about the winter, and I started thinking about the poem when I was driving home from work along a somewhat urban skyline. It's called Penalty Requital of. Do not admit to admiring wood orchids and litanize the infractions void of wood or light or wood or stone, of milk or burdock, for that tea is for the blood for the abattoir, for learning the tongues and forelocks, for the knowledge of systems, for what's amiss, like missing the Ballentine, for some poverty, for the flame-stamped tin and wood, for bell-like forms, for the clearinghouse, for the breaking of snow above the skyline, for the echo of truck doors, the catalog of bulbs, for what has life in them, a stem, droplets furled against the ice, the smell of nutmeg, cake, then frost, then fainting spells, for one never chooses to be born with or without the call. For the white jug hooked in the underbrush, for the cat's breath, meatloaf, breadth in the loping graffiti, drunks against mad mothers. For the laborers in their day clothes, for the small gleam of a coddling cup, for ice climbing the roof, a bolt of smoke above the robin blue girders, for the air entertainment, a severed mist with no inside, for how good the water that stands for the letter, for a feeling thief in the counter world. Okay. And then this poem is a COVID poem about that first summer. I think I started it that first summer when we were in quarantine. And it's called Things I Need to Live. And it's the first of two poems, but I'm only going to read this. Things I need to live. A negligent mind, the capacity to feel aloft, a vestigial wing spying on a wing, and my wife perfectly different than me. Her coins lie around, her stale, yellowing pillow clumps around the globe of her breath. I want to lob that pillow out the window one night, let it plummet to the roses as she sleeps, until her sheets have smoothed and pennies fall back in her wallet, and my very own clothes fold themselves condo style and sit in their slots. And then I will need remorse. She replicates the moon. I go round and round until her whiteness resolves into olive skin and scrubs. I need to worship her surface of Lebanese Italian bones. By day, I need to see the white moths flirting above the window box until I name them after my grandparents, who would love one another and die. If I see them loop and diverge and flutter as a pair, they are mine. I need them to be Leon and Pauline. I need to wash my hands again and again and look on moths freed from their chrysalis of eternal Jewish sleep. I need to know how to change and how to move with those intellects of moths I have willed into souls so many times with the accomplishments of knowledge. For I need to be the couple, the immigrant scientist and social worker entwined, speakers of Yiddish, the writers of letters, the dashed fins of her script. She would tell me to focus on what I can change, but I need to stay home again and again to save myself, to stare at the fuchsia centers of coleus that blaze outside the window in a box of dirt surrounded by veins. I need to see living things, to glance again at moths latticing sunlight, the color of milky paper above the spent hyacinth, and the pallium of green when late flowers dry. I need their slow unbecoming, their drift into moldy wedding gowns, spider webs, carcasses of petals effacing white when October loves us. Thank you.
I'm a little slow on muting. Thank you so much, Hayley, for giving us all this opportunity to be together. We got addicted to each other during the pandemic, and it's hard to let go. I'm also from Pennsylvania originally, although I live in Southern California. And my two poems reflect that today. First one that I'll read is from Sheila-Na-Gig, and it's called The Shop Within. It has an epigraph from Major Jackson. It must be the supermarket inside me. There's a tropical fish store inside me, a humid space where one can hear the burbling of the filters night and day, mumbling like drunks. Every day I walk the narrow aisle and in the dim light watch the round mouths of sucker catfish, those prehistoric tanks with tails, work their way across the algae on glass walls, the gravel substrate. The melancholy discus drift, stopping to feed on knots of tubiflex. Ghost knives arch like eyebrows. Sometimes I'm called upon to net and bag a flash of neon tetras or some angels for a stranger who wants his tank to match his couch. He doesn't care these colors are alive. I know the customer is always right. Still, I lose my patience with these people who wouldn't listen if I tried to argue. The fish cannot be saved here or in the Amazon. I have learned just to place the bags of living colors in the cart and turn away. Okay, the other one reflects the time of year. I'm not going to read the ekphrastic piece because it's long. And I know this is a long reading. So this one's called Winter Fantasy, and it was in Verse Virtual. I used to stand out in the cold, admiring the stars that seemed chiseled out of ice above the newly fallen snow that covered up the other season's ugliness. And in this world, a blend of old and new, we'd make our pilgrimage downtown, riding the elevated train to stand before the windows of the great department stores of blessed memory, as at the entranceway to some great temple, full of winter scenes of animatronic animals, hedgehogs and foxes, deer, a silver and white forest that glittered like the stars, the sort all city kids like me long to play in, not like the scruff of pines where our mother warned us not to go, haunt of criminals and rapists. These were kindly stars, and we believed no harm would come to us if we wandered there. We aspired to put ourselves beyond the touch of death and cruelty, sheltered as the new grass and seeds waiting underneath the snow, locked securely by the moon's silver key, left hanging from a snowy branch. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Mark Simpson, and I live in the Pacific Northwest on an island in Washington State, which is very forested, which might be helpful in this first poem. I'm going to read two, both of them from the recent issue of Sheila-Na-Gig, and unfortunately, they're not in my current book. This is called A Not Quite Living Museum. Memory is less vivid than life, that present tense of hours, work to do, words turning themselves into nothing resembling thought. Like the orange sunset, that orange to red, sudden, then suddenly not there. You can tell the season by it, not much else. The half-gone alder fell during the first storm, a fine display of decay tumbling over the road. Witten knows, of course, the ease of rot, the possibilities. I wish I'd been there to see it go, split halfway up, an incisor of pale wood splintered trunk left. The rest in pieces, large and immovable, until we cut it up. What I remember is like that. Splintering in advisory level wind, falling, sometimes a trace left, rings of heartwood too far gone to count. Thank you. And the second and final poem I'd like to read is titled On the Telephone, the Entire Cosmos is Calling. And the title is actually a quotation from John Cage, the composer. If you have a smile that beams famously and especially perpetually, of course the cosmos will call. That husky voice on the end of the line calls from light years away, located, it seems, somewhere between Alpha Centauri and Orion's crotch. It wants to know how you do it, while you, up to your knees in no mind wild, miss the call. You found luminosity in the weeds, unscripted sounds in trees, awaiting process, awaiting a little craft, a little empty mind. So much wu wei out there. Who needs the cosmos when you've got a pair of dice, each face a silence unto itself? Make an art out of that, the cosmos mumbles, and you do. Thank you.
Hayley, am I on? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm in my daughter's purple room. The kids have left, but they've left their colors on the walls too. So this poem is called The Daisy, and it was published in Sheila-Na-Gig. The Daisy. My son and I used to gather in the bright, not quite hot morning, daisies we could easily find along Scatter Ridge, root chained to wildflower fields, fists pumping the wind. In his baby hands, a stranglehold bouquet represented purity. Today, along the chip-sealed roadside, blacktopped by the road crew last night, white petals were tarred, some broken, and you ran away past the stop sign someone had spray painted to read, "Stop in the name of love." Our car lights flooded the field searching for you, but I knew you were heading for the ridges high above Route 33, where dealers hand out fentanyl, lost dreams, where you snapped a fuzzy picture of yourself on your iPhone, sending it to me in a text. Look, there are daisies up here. You've stuck a daisy behind your ear, placed a smoke behind the other one, both white daisy and cigarette ignite at the center. There is a game that you play on the face of a daisy and a riddle that goes, he loves me not. Death plucks a young life, another overdose in this town, another son or daughter gone. There is a song my grandfather used to sing to me, Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer true, with his eyes so chicory blue, blue like gas flames burning low light at the end of his life. He said, I'll be pushing up daisies before you ever have children. Just raise them up bright. Oh, grandfather, I am in trouble. I am afraid of the way the world has changed, and my son is so lost. I want him to tell me truthfully, to look me in the eye when I ask him, are you still using? The second poem is called Under Drifting Stars and has not been published yet. And it's based on it's an ekphrastic poem based on a quilt, picture of a quilt. So, and the quilt maker's name is Judith Martin, and I have this quote, I make quilts large enough to cover a whole family. Under Drifting Stars. There are two of you now, like two full moons appearing in the same month. One super blue, a second sun born unexpectedly. The one they call the addict is not you. Just like the man on the moon, you too have faraway eyes. The sun I brought home was light in the folds of my arms, quilted under my skin. I stitched your see-through eyelids with tiny blue capillaries. I adore them. I have kissed where the man in the moon has hooked you with his left fist. For 3 months and a half, you've been sober in rehab, where time is measured in little sips of water, of medication, the right pill versus wrong pill, stars snag on the curtain pulley in your room. Outside the window boxes, a gift of stars adrift. They seem needled in place, perhaps fixed. One errant stitch can bring the whole sky down. You pull a blanket covered in pilling under your chin. Suboxone and Seroquel numb you. Blackout curtains hide whatever light there is of the night. A fault line shudders beneath you. The moon's a trembling circle drawn lopsided in a boy's scrawl, and a half moon is cinched with a lasso. At least you sleep somewhere safe. Isn't that better than walking the streets with puddles that seep up your pant legs, forming mountain chains around your ankles? Thanks, everyone.
Okay, I've been invited to read. I'll read just one short poem, not to get us into overtime. I feel like the understudy where the actor suddenly got ill, and I've got to come and do my bit against the odds. Anyway, I'm reading a poem from my new book, Life Stuff, that's just come out. I haven't got my author copies yet because of Christmas. But anyway, here it is. Oh, by the way, I'm in Lima, Peru, and Zoom is my lifeline to English and to poetry. I always loved you, life. You have showered me in riches. You have hurt me beyond measure. But I'm getting tired now. I started the battle early, and the warrior woman's arm is lowering her bow. I wore a coat of many colors, became what the world wanted me to be, claimed my freedom by melting into walls. Sometimes you could see the fissures. I did what I needed to do in the anonymity of plain sight. I lusted after the steps of my mother's forebears, my long mane blowing in the wind. My DNA remembered that I honored the goddess, cared for the land, heard it, and told the stories of old. Didn't know what it means to belong, but I always was a quick learner, my deceit well practiced. You never quite found me out as not of your pack.
Okay, my name's Frank Modica, and I'm from Urbana, Illinois. I've had 2 poems published in Sheila-Na-Gig, and I'm really happy to be a part of this community. A local Urbana poet who's also been published in Sheila-Na-Gig recommended the publication to me, and I'm glad he did. He's not here tonight, but I think he might have participated in earlier ones. I'm going to read my first poem that was accepted in March of 2021, titled Misdirection. What I thought was an American bald eagle ranging far and wide over amber waves of grain was in reality a turkey vulture flying long, low, lazy gyrations, hunting for roadkill. And what I thought was a rattlesnake curled up on the side of the road waiting to ambush me was a windblown jacket wrapped around a yield sign, broken by winds and rain. And when I thought I saw a Harley-Davidson motorcycle parked at the local strip mall, all gleaming chrome, I glimpsed a bicycle, spray-painted white, chained to a street light, remembering a dead cyclist. And when I thought I felt the pulse of my newborn grandchild against my chest, it was my cell phone, vibrating a robocall. My second poem is Queen of Heaven Cemetery, Hillside, Illinois. Thank you. Hummingbirds hover over empty blossoms. Sparrows chase robins from their nests. Petals fall from tall browning stems. Veterans Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July. It could have been any of those anniversaries. Instead, it's an ordinary Sunday afternoon when we drive to his newly mown cemetery. We don't do flowers, navigate by other memories, triangulate the highest flagpole, 2 howitzers, walk around tall tombstones, trek past a mariachi band celebrating someone else's life. We find his low-lying marker, brush away dewy glass clippings, rub his silent name, still astonished by our sprawling griefs. I've got a number of other poems that are as yet unpublished. They've been going out there. My next poem is Hitting the Spot. After I eat a plate of pasta with clams, lean back, pat my stomach, say, that hits the spot. My daughters roll their eyes. Dad, they moan, it's so old, as if I'm a vernacular dinosaur. But I'm not shooting at a distant bullseye with a bow and arrow. My vision isn't so good these days anyway, so I probably missed the mark. No, I'm holding on to something I love before it's gone.
Thank you, Frank. Jennifer Sutter is not here, so we will move on to Wendy. Okay, great.
Thank you so much. I feel so touched and honored to be part of this community. And Hayley, this is just a wonderful, valiant thing that you're doing tonight for us at the end of the year. So I will read 2 poems. One of them is pretty new, and the other was published in Sheila-Na-Gig. So I will start with Fairy Tales. 1. Did I ever enter the woods alone? Even as I remember breath-held moments hovering over a pollen-brushed bee, or mosses licking the rain with their tiny tongues, or a ripple scored on the surface of the creek, these moments when myself reached out and merged with the world, when the woods entered me, its cracklings, its silences. Even then, there was someone nearby because a girl alone in the woods could be eaten, or worse. 2. What is worse than being eaten? We all know, defiled, disgraced, cast out of the warm circle of family and friends, left to wander the wastes at the edge of town with a child no one will recognize. Don't think these stories have gone away. We've cut down the woods, slaughtered the wolves. Has this made the world safe for girls? And I think I forgot to say that I'm Wendy McVicker, tuning in from Athens, Ohio. So this poem commemorates a dress, and that is actually the only dress that I loved, and that's the only authentic fact in this piece, which Hayley was so good to publish a while back. I tried to look up the date and I got tangled. So this is the green dress. When was the last time you wore that dress? The green one that swirled cool around your hips and ankles. It had crisscrossing ribbons down the back and skinny shoulder straps. Sometimes you wore a t-shirt under it. Sometimes, in summer heat, it was all you wore. You could swim a lithe, narrow fish, all grace and sheer intention through any room, and the others, with their assessing ice chip eyes, blurred into water plants, parting as you passed. Voices clicked and soughed, tried to catch you with their little hooks, but you swam on, untouched, untouchable. Once, on the other side of a great room, an ocean of a room, you saw a wall of glass, and beyond that sky and clouds, the great silence you longed to enter. That dress saw you through move after move, one apartment, one party, then another. Gradually, you slowed down, stopped moving. Your feet grew roots or suckers that held you to the ground. Even the winds could barely move you. One day you realized that the dress was gone. Not even a rag remained to wipe fog from the bathroom mirror. But it didn't matter, did it? That sky, those rooms, so far away now. All those voices stilled. You no longer need to keep swimming just to stay alive. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'm up next. I'm Elya Braden, and calling in from Oxnard, California, which is just south of Ventura for anybody who knows the California coast. And I'm looking at the water right now with Christmas lights. And the first one I'm going to read was in the spring issue of Sheila-Na-Gig. And it was about one of my less successful pets. Flutter and fight. Hope is the thing with feathers, Emily Dickinson. Of course she refused to speak, only glowed mute yellow, shrieked and slammed her green-tipped wings against the bars that bound her world, bolted for the ceiling, banged against the bedroom window, the sun peeking in under a red ruffle. Every time I snaked my small hand in to clean her cage, smoothed down a fresh page of the news of the day. Who doesn't rage against the limitations that define our lives? Don't we all want to devour that extra slice of chocolate cake and not gain an ounce? Don't we all want to run that almost red light, arm wrestle the Grim Reaper for another year or two? I never wanted a bird all flutter and fight. In a home where my mother waved a doorway goodnight, while my father smoked and glowered in the den, I craved touch, fondled the black velvet skirt hanging in my mother's closet, slept with my aging, eyeless Leo, scooched too close to my father's friend on our den couch, me in pink pajamas, unable to sleep, my skin as urgent for connection as an unplugged lamp. I'd begged for a gerbil, something small and furry, a fistful of cuddle. I'd imagined its tiny nose twitching kisses on my cheek. But gerbils were outlaws in California, and so the parakeet, Polly of the stone tongue, Polly dreaming always of sky, Polly who, like me, saw every open door as a welcome mat to freedom. Thank you. And this next one was recently in Anti-Heroin Chic this summer. When I hear that my sister did not attend my father's funeral, I know she has become a weather pattern, an atmospheric river sweeping over California, turning freeways into lakes, overpasses into waterfalls, fields into seas. She carries everything away with a liquid wave of her arm. Barking dogs and mewling cats thrash in her turbulent waters, crash into teapots and flashlights, plastic garbage bins and bicycles. Her mouth is a grotto sucking and spewing a toppled birch tree, a flag ripped from its post, a jump rope, a rusty barbecue. She swallows schoolyards and backyards, strawberry fields and football fields, parking lots and graveyards. No one can see her cry because she is Gulliver, her head crowned with thunderclouds. All we hear is terror. All we smell is death. Thank you. And thank you, Hayley, for providing this opportunity. It's great to see you.
Elya, that was great. Thank you.
Yes.
My name is George Franklin, and I've got two poems to read. One of them was in Sheila, and the other is an older poem, is a little bit older poem that was in Matter a year or so ago. It's called The Protagonist. In movies and novels, the protagonist turns the key in the ignition, leaves entanglements in a lopsided rearview mirror. He doesn't bother to adjust it because what's abandoned isn't important. He passes prairies and mountains, coyotes crossing the highway at night, truck stops full of flannel shirts, caps, and bad coffee. Stop somewhere up ahead. Walt Whitman is waiting. Jack Kerouac eats apple pie and vanilla ice cream on a stool in a diner. Gary Snyder cooks stew in the desert. The winter constellations are fireworks against a black sky. But it's all wrong. Walt Whitman died in Camden and Kerouac in Florida, surrounded by conservative magazines, beer cans, and bitterness. The road ends where it started, a cliche like a sour stomach. The protagonist ages badly. Whatever he thought he'd find, it wasn't where he thought he'd find it. Arthritis invades his ankles and his hands. He doesn't draw the same breaths anymore. Whitman was supposed to be waiting, but he never showed up. In New Orleans, in the morning, they're washing the sidewalks in front of the bars. The strippers have gone home to sleep. Trucks collect green bags of garbage on Bourbon Street. It's Sunday, and the cathedral is open for business. In the park, the statue of Andrew Jackson continues to tell the same lie. Bukowski was thrown in jail in Texas. At the water's stubborn edge in California, the protagonist finds an absence he can't talk about. His thoughts sink in the waves, like sea glass or books he won't read again. At rush hour, the traffic slows without any obvious reason. He wants an ending that's a real ending, one where everything makes sense. Instead, there's just traffic going nowhere. And this is the poem that was in the most recent Sheila, Without a Soul. People who have souls, I guess, are lucky, but I'm not one of them. Cut me open, and no shimmer of invisible self will fly off to heaven or sink to hell, or drift a lost weather balloon across the stratosphere. Inside of me, there's not another me, a less tangible gust of stubborn opinions, drafts of poems, and fondness for garlic. What you see is probably all you'll find. The old guy on the autopsy table, dull-eyed as a supermarket trout packed in melting ice. A friend the other day told me I was a materialist. Maybe he's right, but I do believe in desire. It flows beneath our skin, a wind, ephemeral, unseen, eager, and utterly mortal. People who have souls may be lucky, but those without may be luckier. I think about all the nights we've held each other, how I wake the next morning, my lips pressed to your neck, shoulders, resting my hand on your thigh, listening to my own heartbeat, listening to your breath on the pillow. On those mornings, our bodies are enough. Thank you.
So I would take the opportunity to echo what you've heard so many times tonight, Hayley, but you can't hear enough, actually, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you so much for what you're doing here and just what you do, of course, on a regular basis. I'm a newbie to this community, so it's been very welcoming and satisfying and gratifying. So thank you all for attending and listening. Two poems for you tonight. The first one's fairly short, which appeared this year in Third Wednesday. I think this one sort of matches a little bit of my sensibility at this time of year as you're transitioning from one year to the new and maybe get a little on the reflective side. The poem is called Horse Sense. You can tell a horse anything. Barn swallows scatter from rafters in high-throated song when you open your mouth, but a horse listens just right. Such is the nonchalance of the stall. Outside, the riverbed fills with blue fog this morning, and I run a brush through the white mare's winter coat, my stories streaming through her ear. And what a luxury for us both, to not have a common language, to not let subtleties stand the way of understanding. I can't see the scrub along the riverbank, only the shape waters have worn into the earth, and glassy eyes of houses from the other side glaring down at everything untamed. Some things hidden are best not discovered. Some days best begin just brushing your horse in a fog. Thank you. Second poem I'm going to do for you here is new, just came out in, it's another animal poem. It's my theme for the night, I guess, in Bending Genres. And the name of this poem is Maybe, Maybe. I might find another dog, maybe next year, after I've finished with this year's therapist, done with all that talking about the unsuccessful talking I've done with other people. Maybe I'll be stripped down to just walking or sitting and saying, good dog. There's a kind of immortality to my dreams, and it feels like those so-called eternal moments when dreaming I'm running and laughing with Rusty or Fiona. Good dogs, loyal and loving, or at least I believe in it being real, tangible, reliable. And it occurs to me maybe I've failed in that kind of willingness to believe when it comes to humans. When the heart dies, it's a foreboding riddle. When the brain dies, it's Merry Christmas, everything distilled down to your childhood, be it happy or sad, peppermint or coal. And in yesterday's session, I remembered taking Rusty to the home my great-grandmother had been remanded to when in 1972, she woke up in 1944 and liked it so much she stayed. Rusty understood boyhood, disliked my father, and instantly befriended Nano that afternoon. We sat with her for hours, saying next to nothing, just hand-holding and smiling. Later in the 70s, I'd be wrecked by booze, acid, coke, merciless friends and lovers, and so many lies, so much smack talk, backstabs, and cash grabs, and I paid less attention to Rusty. Then he died, and I got confused, climbed a mountain, laid in the cold, wet grass alone to sleep for years and years. At last got up, descended, looked for some river to float down. I found a stray, called her Fiona. She adopted me, and next thing you know, I stopped talking and found a human who said, I love you. I was with Fiona while she died and told her, I've told you everything I could never tell anyone. And she knew. She said none of this to my therapist. Maybe next year will be the year. Another year of silence with a one-man dog. Thank you all very much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Barbara Sabol, and I am really pleased to be here with you all and hear your poems. This is great. Thank you, Hayley, for this great poetry marathon. Let me get my voice. I like to read, one poem from my book, which is a Sheila-Na-Gig Editions book, Imagine a Town. This is a cento called La Turista. Sometimes I am on a train going to a strange city, and you are outside the window, my beautiful, capable daughter, far from home. You were a turista. It is time for loss to build its tower in the yard where you are merely a spectator now. Think of your life as a bulky present, stairway of shadows and lost dolls, orchids in their hot glass houses, bad luck and the black radish. When the trees incline toward the grass, arching with fullness, it's hard to free your foot from that dreamy earth pool. What a liar, the grave. Not one eyelash stays underground. No one remembers a soft wind off the stones of the dead. Often I am permitted to return to a meadow, consider the radiance, a dream of the grass blowing. The birds are there, eating the rust from their wings, deep in my body, my green heart turns and thinks of you. Thanks. And the second poem is from a new book called Watermark, about the Johnstown flood of 1889. And this is the opening poem. At the plot of the unknowns. And just to give you a brief context, the Grandview Cemetery in Johnstown, Pennsylvania is where all of the unidentified victims of the flood of 1889 were buried in a large plot with almost 800 blank stones. It's pretty, it's very moving. At the plot of the unknowns. I belong to a family of grave tenders. We arrive with grass shears, watering cans, season upon season. A seashell placed on a neighboring stone, small plastic farm animal on the next, say, you are not forgotten. After tamping the annuals, I kneel back, conjure my mother. If there is an after, I hope she is pleased with these small gestures. The day is radiant. Mica and quartz glisten monuments along the path to the plot of the unknown drown, whose identical marble stones rise from the ground in narrow rows like sheaves of some strange crop. Their blank faces marked only by weather, names writ in water. Dressmaker, scullery maid, drifter, carpenter, millwright, mother, the children whose dreams scatter in the grass, you are not forgotten. I lean my full weight on one stone, knowing in my own bones, there is a story here, and under the next and the next. The earth begins to warm, an elusive wood thrush flutes, crocuses open to the light. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Barbara, of course, is my associate editor at Sheila-Na-Gig Online and couldn't do it without her, as she knows, and I cannot just say it. So,
my pleasure, Hayley.
I'm going to close us off with two poems. I don't usually read at these things, but you know, what the heck. Happy-ish poems. Some of you already know these. This first one appeared in Verse Virtual actually a couple years ago. It's called Joy. The neighborhood kids are going for the record. The longest chalk hopscotch starting at 103 Meadowlark. Hop, skipping, jumping, winding its way through our small patch of Kentucky roadscape. 1 square, 1 foot, 2 squares, 2 feet. Each box a unique geometry, depending on the writing skills of its young maker, tumbles up the middle of the asphalt till some mom guides the installation towards the safety of our edged lawn. At box 535, the oldest boy begins to count by hundreds, squares 600, 700, 800, stretching beyond 4 houses, rounding into the cul-de-sac, past Friday's recycling bins. Then up the street again, flanked by pink, happy-faced hearts, rainbow-tailed unicorns, blue cats, purple flowers. The project goes on for days, easily beating the record, heading back home with over 1,800 squares. The joy is in the making. No one thinks about Ripley's rules or worries about tire treads slowly taking up colorful hues. The nighttime critters nosing through the chalk box, or even, inevitably, the sudden rain. And finally, this one, I lost my mouse. This one appeared recently in One Art. Reserved. I confess I am suspicious of this fresh happiness, worrying perhaps about depression sneaking back in, stealing what is shining, like I should know better than to flash all this brightness around. When I retire for afternoon naps, more out of habit now than a place to lay my sadness, I can't nod off in all that light, my new sheer draperies singing the day. Might not my cheerfulness attract some evil eye? Might not disaster follow my good fortune? My neighbor quipped, I know you're not pregnant, but you're glowing. Soon after, he left his wife. I can't help feeling a little responsible. Now, when friends ask, are you happy? I save some of that sunshine in reserve. I nod and smile, try to glow a little less. Say, yes, I'm good. I'm really doing okay now. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here and celebrating Sheila-Na-Gig online. If you're with us on YouTube, you can find more at www.sheilanagigblog.com. Thank you.